This is a BBC News special on the escalating Ukraine crisis. I'm Matthew Amroliwala in London.
And I'm Lyse Doucet in Kiev, where Ukrainian declares a state of emergency and calls up reservists to join the regular army in response to what it calls increased Russian aggression. And it gives this warning at the United Nations.
This is an escalating threat to our collective global security and to our freedom. Ukraine expects decisive, immediate and proportional actions by the international community.
Vladimir Putin tells his armed forces the security of Russia is non-negotiable, but he says he's still open to diplomacy.
Joe Biden's assessment and warning couldn't be clearer.
Who in the Lord's name does Putin think gives him the right to declare new so-called countries on territory that belong to his neighbors?
As the West introduces sanctions, the British government faces criticism for not going far enough with its action against Russian billionaires and banks. We'll be live with our correspondents on the Ukrainian border, also live in Washington and live in Paris.
And I'll be speaking to the former Prime Minister of Ukraine. We're also joined by a former NATO Secretary General, senior diplomats and commentators to ask, where is this crisis going from here? Welcome to this BBC News special on the escalating crisis over Ukraine. We're live in Kiev and London. There have been dramatic developments here in Ukraine today. Ukraine is now set to declare a state of emergency, and at the same time, the Ukrainian authorities have called on their citizens to leave Russia as soon as possible, saying it cannot protect them after the escalating tensions following Russia's decision to recognize the two breakaway republics in eastern Ukraine. The reservists have also been called up to join the regular army.
Well, last night, the US president was brutally clear in his assessment, talking about the beginning of a Russian invasion. Joe Biden said, to put it simply, Russia has announced it's carving out a big chunk of Ukraine. Vladimir Putin insisted today that Russia's interest and security is non-negotiable. Moscow has already dismissed Western sanctions that have been imposed. So let's start with this report from Caroline Davis in the city of Rostov-on-Don, 100 kilometres from the border with Ukraine.